Good afternoon and welcome everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Woo! Good to be with you. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you're going to listen live via the streaming free always. All guests on today's program appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations. 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. That's necessary because we do have a special guest on the program today. Stay with us all day. But in the 5 o'clock hour in particular, we've got Florida State head basketball coach Leonard Hamilton to join us in the interest of transparency, as I like to say. This conversation took place yesterday. Coach Hamilton and I sat down and spoke for 25 minutes. You'll hear all of it in the 5 o'clock hour. I look forward to that because it's a great interview. Ham is a fantastic, fantastic guy with a lot of perspective, obviously, and so it's a wide-ranging conversation. I think you'll enjoy it, and that'll take place in the 5 o'clock hour. By the way, mention we're online, ESPNTallahassee.com if you want to stream the show. YouTube, we're up and running. Hello, YouTubers. Happy opening day, everybody. On Twitter, it's at JCameron Show. Man, I'm excited. You guys know I'm a big baseball fan. Not everybody is, but I think on a day like today, you're probably, even if you're lukewarm on the sport, a little bit more enthusiastic about it today than you have been in years past. It's nice to add to the ledger. Right now what you got are fringe sports, things that I guess occupy your time in the way of nostalgia, certainly. We've all watched a bunch of old games, things like that. Then you have sort of the silly kind of activities that take place at tailgates, right? Cornhole and various other things that they're having to resort to show on ESPN. Hell, ESPN's showing concerts and movies right about now. They've been doing that for the last few weeks. It's nuts. But not anymore. Now, in addition to the PGA Tour, you welcome back Major League Baseball. And it's an indicator, too, that we're on the cusp of welcoming back even more sports at a time where I think we desperately need it. There's no doubt. And we certainly cross our fingers that these things go off without a hitch, because they may very well be the pathway to college sports getting ramped back up. Maybe not, but if these don't work, that can't work. So you need this to go swimmingly, smoothly. There will be hiccups. They're not going to get through this unscathed, just like the PGA Tour hasn't. But they haven't been hit so hard as to have to shut down and stop. And so I was hoping to get to the finish line being Thursday, opening day, let the games begin. When they first ratcheted back up, when they came back with the idea that this is what they were going to do, I was frankly cynical, suspect of the league's organizational skills, abilities to implement the plan and execute said plan. Didn't think necessarily that it would happen because I'll tell you what, baseball's made a mess of things for some time. But the summer camps and the exhibition games that we've seen played and the testing procedures, they've worked up to now. There have been guys that have tested positive, and obviously they'll be quarantined and they miss some time and they can't come back to play for their respective teams until they have 2 negative tests and they've sit out the requisite amount of time. It's what's going to happen. So, again, there won't be hiccups, but here we are, and they're starting again, and welcome back Major League Baseball. I just know that when you need an escape, when the news is what it is on a regular basis, and you get home and you just want to unwind, maybe not even fully invest, but just unwind with a game on in the background. Baseball is perfect for that. And I welcome that back with open arms. Really, really good news today that we get to celebrate that. Want to note that our folks at Barano Heating and Air Conditioning sponsored today's program. They sponsored the last couple of days when we've talked so much about baseball and the build-up to that. We thank them, as always. Barano, longtime partner, not just of mine, but of ESPN Radio. Great work that they do, and they're always on board to help us do what we need to do. And I would encourage you to do business with those who do business with us. And I don't take that lightly at a time like this. I never take it lightly, but that's especially true right now. We get it. Tough times. So we appreciate their loyalty and their investment in the Jeff Cameron Show and ESPN Radio. I would also like to thank the Quarter Pocket for putting on a little opening day special. If you're on your way home and you want to engage, but you don't want to hang out, I get that. I understand that. We got to be safe, and it's different for everybody, different sets of situations and parameters. But you can swing on in there, wear your mask, and get what, Tom? What is the big to-do?
It's Baseball in a Box is the name of the campaign. You'll be hearing a lot about it in the coming weeks, certainly in the commercial breaks. But it's your choice of a hamburger, 2 hot dogs, or a Bradley sausage dog, plus a side of fries, little thing of Cracker Jacks. They're going to get you individual bags of Cracker Jacks, so that's all individualized, and a 24-ounce giant beer, either dine in or to go. It's all $12.99 all day, every day. Welcome back, baseball. It's essentially the concession stand haul that you're used to getting, and then you sit in your seat with the big egg crate box, right? You can get that for not the concession level prices. That's for sure. $12.99.
I did the last night. I did the PGA Tour show on Sirius XM 92 on your Sirius XM dial, and Rondé Barber was my guest, along with Trey Jones, of course, who's the star of the show. And we talked with Rondé about his 16-year career. You know, it made me a little angry to find out that he's a 2 handicap. Well, he didn't pick up a golf club.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's a 2. He's a professional athlete for 16 years in the NFL and all ACC player. I assume he's got some coordination to him, Tom. That's kind of worked out. But he was fun to talk to about sports in general and, just kind of getting to know him. But it was a lot of fun. And afterwards, I got in the car and I drove on my way back to the house. It's late when we finished that show. And I put it on the MLB Network. And when I walked through the door, kissed my family, climbed into bed, put on MLB Network, and drifted off to sleep. Now, that's an exhibition game. Now you can do it where you come home from work after a long day and sit down, perhaps partake in a frosty cold one, and take in a game that counts on a sprint in what feels like a pennant race, and every night's result, every day's result matters. Speaking of which, tomorrow we'll do a special early edition of the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 hour ahead. We'll lead you right up into the Braves pregame show. That's right. We've got the Braves on this here network, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll bring you their opening day game, as we have Braves games, just as we did a year ago. So excited.
Yeah, we're looking at somewhere between 22 and 26 games a month minimum for the Braves over the next 2 months. The 60-game season will get you, obviously, all of July because there's no competition in July. But we've got NFL requirements if there is such a season. I don't know if that'll be a thing in September. And then there's also the NBA playoffs and ESPN Radio down the line, too. We'll pick and choose as we go. But we're going to give you the bulk of the Braves season. And tomorrow, outside of Labor Day afternoon, tomorrow's the only game for the Braves this year during the week that airs during the show's hours. And since it's opening day, we've been waiting so long for a sport that counts.
Yeah.
We're going to leave the air at 2:55 when the Braves radio network takes over. And then my Mets will beat the Braves tomorrow once the first pitch starts at 4:10 p.m. And we're going to celebrate on Saturday.
Why don't you play that clip? You still have that clip? You still have Jameis playing, laying it out there so crystal clear for us all? Because that's what you were echoing there, an all-time classic.
Hey, on Saturday, I'm going to be in my sanctuary. We're going to play a game. We're going to most likely win that game, and we're going to celebrate on Sunday.
What a joy that was, huh?
That was a nice time.
Most likely win that game, yes.
Hey, on Saturday, I'm going to be in my sanctuary. We're going to play a game. We're going to most likely win that game, and we're going to celebrate on Sunday.
A window into the mind of a fierce competitor who doesn't like to lose. There it is. That's
I don't know how much celebrating he's doing in this iteration of his life as a dad, but in those days,
I think yes, different forms
he'd go
of
out in the lake
celebration.
and enjoy his Sunday.
Yeah. I think he's happier now than he's ever been. I think obviously professionally he would like to see this turn into something a little bit more long-term stability-wise. But the opportunity in New Orleans is pretty good. And given that I stay in pretty good touch with the with the family there, I think he's in good place.
So MLB whiffed again on something. Tomorrow the first game of the day is the Braves and Mets game at 4:00. You would think. I mean, listen, most people are working from home anyway. They'll just turn the TV on if you start the games at 1. I know that people aren't going to be in the stands, so you don't need to.
I just don't know why this gets to be so
Come on.
difficult. It happens all the time with the various leagues, right? I mean, we just got done bitching about what the PGA Tour is doing, shamelessly trying to sell this PGA Live thing that they do now and waste opportunities to own market share by having live golf on throughout the course of the day, and they don't do it because they want you to be funneled towards this app that you purchase or this account that you have purchased, and it drives me batty. In this situation with Major League Baseball, there ought to be games on all damn day.
Every day.
All day.
So the NBA is going to do it. You know why? Because they're smart. When they start rolling out their games and they're coming back to it's the bubble, so I
well, the
understand
NHL is going to do it too.
But yeah, you're going to start at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to go all day long. Yes, that's the way to do it. We all need it. We got to have it.
Starving for it. We get a little bit of it today. Jeff Cameron, Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. FSU gets a commit off the edge. Who is it? What are the particulars? What them kids doing? Coming up next. Good news and then added good news for Florida State. Let's start with the fact that Jarian Jones and Fabian Lovett, both transfers, of course, from Mississippi State this offseason, wise choice to get the hell up out of Mississippi, have each been granted a transfer waiver allowing for immediate eligibility this year. Woo-hoo, portal news.
Yes, it's like the portal with the ding at the end because you made it through. You've made it through the portal.
You're out the portal. Run.
Is that Bobby Bowden's statue?
We are fired up for Jarian and Fabian to have this opportunity to compete this season, said Mike Norvell, head coach, Florida State University. The Noles happy as well. The entire Florida State family grateful to the NCAA committee for their time considering these appeals for two great young men. Jarian and Fabian are tremendous football players who've already had a positive impact on our program, and I'm looking forward to seeing that impact continue to grow. For those of you that don't know, Jones is a sophomore defensive back, appeared 11 games last year, 1 start, 12 tackles, 2 pass breakups, 1 fumble recovery last year as a true freshman. The Magee, Mississippi native was rated as a 4-star prospect and number 13 overall in the state of Mississippi coming out of Northwest Rankin High School. He was named to the Clarion Ledger Dandy Dozen. That always warms the heart, down deep in the cockles. He was also part of the Under Armour All-American game and the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. So it's a good player. He was obviously very talented coming out of high school, well thought of enough to be courted by several SEC schools. So that's a good get and a lot of experience under the belt. Lovett, a redshirt sophomore defensive tackle, 13 starts in 15 games, played at Mississippi State, recorded 19 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 1 sack, I should say. 10 would be a very big difference maker. He started all 13 games as a redshirt freshman, though, in 2019, made a career-high 4 tackles at Tennessee. So, again, big-time SEC experience for a youngish player, obviously, and an opportunity to contribute immediately. Good on you guys. Congratulations. And that's good news for Florida State indeed.
Whenever immediately is, we have bolstered depth at the very least, and these might be some guys that end up being real difference makers over the next 2 or 3 seasons.
Cue it up. What them kids doing, Tom Lang? It's time to let you know. On that note, there is positive news as well for Florida State because they got to commit.
Once again, friends, it's time for What Them Kids Doing.
Look at that jibber jabber Jeff. What's that kid bench? How fast does he run?
Hey, who let you in here?
Look at him. I bet he can bench a lot. What them kids doing, Jeff?
Committing to Florida State, at least in the form of defensive end Byron Turner. Florida State picking up its 14th commitment for the class of 2021. Good news there. FSU extending an offer to Turner in late June. It took less than a month for him to make his pledge to the Noles, even though he did not get the opportunity to visit the campus because of the coronavirus pandemic. But he is on board. And just so you know, true pass rusher here at 6'4", 230, had offers from the University of Florida, suck it, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Nebraska, amongst others. In fact, he had 30 scholarship offers. So this is exciting news for Florida State. And he's a kid that comes in as a 3-star. Suspect it'll be 4 stars before the day comes that he arrives on campus. But, you know, the point is they're identifying guys. This is a kid from Louisiana, not a place that we're able to get a lot of kids out of from typically, especially if they're being eyed by SEC schools. But in this case, he commits to Florida State. He said that he wants to try and narrow things down before the season starts this year, so I'll have a decision by the end of the middle of the season is what he said earlier. He had mentioned that it was a tight race. But if you look at it now, it's a big position of need, and he's the second commitment at that position. Of course, we landed Joshua Farmer, too, from Havana, Florida, earlier. So they're getting kids at a position of need. Fast twitch kid, fast off the edge, Exciting.
Yeah, player with upside, and this is the hard part, is the convoluted mess that is high school attendance and sports in the fall of 2020. I don't even want to get into the state of Florida and that hours-long meeting.
5 hours.
Trying to keep up with that was impossible.
No.
We have contacts who cover high school football for a living, and they said, I don't even know where to begin. But some schools are going to have tape and some aren't. And I'm just hoping that some of these 3 stars we've picked up, the guys that have decent offer lists but haven't, been picked up by 24/7 or rivals as a true blue chipper, let's keep them under the radar. Let's hope that their high school film is not able to be sent off. Because if we've got a couple of, diamonds in the rough,
let's hold out hope.
Let's let this be the opportunity we needed to keep it under wraps, because you see it so many times where the offer list changes around November or even after December's early transfer or early signing window is cleared. Alabama comes calling out of nowhere because they've had attrition at a position. And as Florida State right now, we are in a position to be poached straight up. It's not 50-50. If they want somebody and we want somebody, they're going to get them. So hopefully this is a position where, maybe a couple of these kids that have upside, if they don't play this fall, no big deal. We'll develop them when they get here.
Yeah, that's true. But remember this. You can't get everybody. Rosters are only so big. And if you have stockpiled elite-level athletes, like a place, say, LSU has done, or others that have competed for championships or playoff appearances, kids who want to get in and play and they see an opportunity to play and maybe there's some buy-in to whatever the pitch might be, or a young, in this case, coaching staff that really resonates. You can poach those kids. You can get a few of those kinds of kids. Those are actually the kinds of kids you have to hope to get because, you're not getting the 5-star kid that has LSU, Clemson, and Alabama on his list.
The hard part is, though, the low-end 4-star kid who's a backup plan for one of those power schools, and Georgia goes on a run. If Bama says, well, you're a take now, you just started the segment by talking about 2 transfers from Mississippi State. I think that's where we are on the recruiting trail right now. We are at the caliber of a Mississippi State. Do we have more cachet behind us? Yes. But how are we looked at by recruits? I think we're on that type of level. We're competing with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, more than we are Alabama, LSU, Georgia.
Yeah, it's hurtful, but we've been there before. At the end of the lost decade, that's where we were. We were kind of a school that had a wonderful reputation for success for the better part of 3 decades, but one that hadn't done anything in a while and was beginning to wane. And so we weren't top of mind. You had to get a couple of kids to take a leap of faith and buy into a new coaching staff, buy into a new vision. And I think Mike Norvell and his staff are illustrating here that they have the ability to sell this pitch and to get kids to buy in. And that's important, especially at a time where really they've been hamstrung in so many ways. I'll end up talking about this ad nauseum. You guys are going to hear me say it a lot. I'm really hoping at some point they get to play some football because I really believe in this staff. I really think that they've done good things with what they've been given. I think it'll be illustrated if they play games. If they don't play games, again, you're going on a wing and a prayer and faith from kids that have never seen the result on the field. And other than maybe if they're monitoring Memphis's results or something. But, that's very, very hard to do. It's hard to succeed that way. So let's hope they can play football because I think we'll like what we see. It may not be the win totals that we were expecting in a normal 12-game schedule. Let's say they might go 8-4. That's not a season to beat the band, but I think what would be more important in a season like that, and we all know that's probably not going to happen, 12-game season. But in a season like that, what you would see is real growth. And you would see execution, you'd see more consistency, you'd see a plan. You might get beat in some areas because you're lacking, but it wouldn't be because you weren't prepared or organized or well coached. And that's enough usually to sway kids that are kind of on the fence, kids that want to kind of set a path on their own, who don't want to go somewhere and sit for 3 years, who do have an opportunity to come in and play and get coached well. So cross your fingers that happens. But for now, Florida State got the good news, and I think they're doing as well as can be expected given the circumstances. I mean, this isn't a class that you're going to end up, when we're right, we're a top 5 recruiting class machine.
Yeah, I think the hard part here is this dead period has stunted the growth of the relationships between this staff and the high schools here in the state. Because they don't have too many coaches right now on that staff, top to bottom, who have pipeline, relationships like Jimbo did. When Jimbo took over in 10, they had a plan of how to divide Miami up and then conquer it. They had a plan of how to hit Orlando. They had a plan, obviously, how to hit South Georgia and Valdosta specifically. They had a plan for the DMV area, which we poached quite a few prospects out of.
Yeah, stunningly.
But
yeah.
we had connections in the state. And this staff didn't have that. Remember, they were holding those hotel luncheons or like the conventions. It's just like a,
Come on
a meet
by.
and greet,
Yeah.
have a cocktail, let's shake hands, get to know each other. Those types of things plus visits to campus would have helped put us in a much healthier position with the coaching staffs in the state of Florida had we not been in the situation we're in. I think that's where we get hurt the most.
Florida State right now, if you're just a recruiting fanatic, you'd look at some of these numbers and say everything looks skewed, because it's not just that Florida State sits at 23rd in the country in recruiting rankings for 2021, according to Rivals. It's who's in front of them that would blow you away. Rutgers. What are you doing, kids? You don't go to Rutgers. Not to play football. What are we doing? But it's Rutgers. It's Missouri. What are you doing? Missouri? Stop that. It's Iowa, where clearly they've had a problem treating black people fairly. You can't go to Iowa. Stop going to Iowa, everybody. You've got Louisville on that list. Satterfield's a good coach. Of course, he couldn't beat Florida State last year, and we were in shambles. North Carolina way up there in the recruiting rankings. Obviously, Oregon has been able to sustain this somehow, some way, paying players. It's remarkable, right? So a lot of people in front of us that we don't ordinarily look at and say, boy, okay, Virginia, Rutgers, and Mizzou all ranked ahead of Florida State. That is something indeed. But until you can play football.
Well, and the hard part, too, is you saw Miami landed a 5-star kid earlier in the week. The fear is that if there is no high school season and/or things don't look a little bit better by December, if they keep the early signing period, which would be stupid, let it go to February.
Yeah.
By the time the kids have to sign, if things don't look better, a lot of players are going to stay closer to home. And Miami has been open for business for going on 20 years now, at least from the U. And it might not be this year because maybe COVID's going to see kids want to drive to school rather than live on campus.
Well,
you know what I mean? Put it close
really,
to the family.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, too, because what the time does, too, like the more time goes by, the easier it is to forget how terribly coached Miami is, how buffoonish their staff and their head coach looked a year ago. Now, I'll grant you, not enough to not beat us, but we were clowns as well. But Miami has just had a succession of clowns for years and years and years, and that might be quickly forgot about, unfortunately. I'm here to remind them, though. I'll do my part. I'm looking after the kids, Miami-Dade. Kids, you don't want to go there.
Well, and in years past, we just look at these, blue chippers say yes to Miami and say, well, on signing day, it's not going to be the case.
Right.
This year, circumstances might lead it to be, it sticks.
Jeff Cameron, Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. accustomed to leading very early in tournaments. At -6, leading the way today at the 3M Open tournament that Matthew Wolff won last year, right? In an exhilarating fashion, eagling number 18. Morikawa had a similar putt on 18 that he had recently that he had to jar in order to force an extra playoff hole or two with Justin Thomas. Same type putt a year ago that would have kept things alive with Matthew Wolff in this tournament, and he just slipped out, and Wolff ended up winning for having eagled number 18.
Yeah, but apparently Bryson eagled 18 before him, too, forcing the issue.
And thought he had won. He had gotten to -20, looked like he would win the tournament. If I recall, he reacted as if he had, only to have been burned by Matthew Wolff, eagling 18 also, and telling DeChambeau to suck it. So, Finau first, Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore, accustomed to leading on a Thursday. A couple of guys at top on a Thursday.
Yeah, apparently, Finau fired his caddy and somebody else on his team, and his swing coach is now his caddy this week.
The course got away from him on late Saturday and then all of Sunday last week, and he is just not mentally tough enough right now. I do think it's interesting, though, because he's a guy that has revealed mental toughness in the past in the Ryder Cup. So it's there. I don't know what's going on. There certainly isn't a lot of winning going on. He's only won once on tour. He's got too much game to only have won once. He's been in a position to win several times, only to see it get away from him on the weekend.
It wasn't exactly a big win either. It wasn't.
No.
You know, the Memorial was Puerto Rico, which is usually a concurrent tournament, right? Something else is going on.
Yeah. Listen, he's had 2 or 3 chances subsequently where it really did take a hell of a letdown for things to go awry. I still marvel at what took place last week, which is to have a 3-stroke lead on a Saturday, and then the back 9 on that Saturday, coupled with the front 9 on that Sunday morning or that Sunday afternoon, sees you go from 3 up to 10 down. My man.
Like Charlie Hoffman looks at that and says, "Dude, don't fall apart. What's wrong with you?"
I mean, that's a toughie. But this is not the same field, not the kind of quality of field that we've been watching lately. So, we'll see. We'll see. Of note, though, I should just say this: Dustin Johnson, who shot 2 80s last week, very quietly, 2 80s last week. Just a couple weeks removed from having won, so that seemingly came out of nowhere. Everybody was thinking, what in the world's going on here? He carded a cool 78 today and promptly withdrew. So he says it's a back issue. I hope that is true because 80, 80, 78 on the tour is emblematic of something wrong.
Well, something screwy. Yeah, it's not just he lost his game out of nowhere. If he just won, it was a good field he beat, too, in order to win earlier this year. Also, 3 Knowles played today. Brooksy shot 1 under par, which is,
better day for him these days.
Pedestrian, but yeah, you're right. It's a positive for him because Thursdays have been hurting him lately. Chase Seifert and Hank Lebioda both 2 under and done today. So
nicely done,
good rounds
Knowles.
for those guys.
Nicely done indeed. I don't know. I can't decide what's the deal. I'll have to look at tee times because it looks like the course played 2 separate ways depending on when you teed off because we've got some pretty good golfers with some pretty sorry numbers out there. And many of these guys are still on the course, so we'll see. And then you have some golfers that you would not qualify under the banner of really elite golfers with some really remarkably low numbers. So I don't know what the hell happened today. Course is weird.
Maybe they went to the course, those lower golfers, because they couldn't get into the Memorial or the week before the workday, and they said, all right, I'm going to know this course inside and out. I'm waiting for you at the 3M. I'm going to get you, boys.
I do have Sam Burns. I'm going to sneeze.
Sam Burns is, on your golf team.
Yeah,
and he's the one who played with Tiger Woods at the Honda years ago.
Oh, that hurt.
And he told Tiger,
sneeze.
as you've pulled something by sneezing,
it's incredible.
that Tiger, everybody's here to see me today. I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And he probably,
sorry about the crowds is what he said.
He beat Tiger in his first Tiger crowd experience. That tells you he's got some chutzpah.
Yeah, he's got a little what for. He's through 4 holes at 1 under. We'll see how he does.
On the way to victory.
My man Van Ruin, hometown kid out here, sorry ass with a +4. God. Really, really disappointing. Disappointing afternoon for Van Ruin.
Well, if he misses the cut, you can just cut your losses at that point.
It's funny that if you're listening to the show, you're going, "Boy, Jeff's really upset about Van Ruin. I wonder if he's got any money
You don't have to wonder at this point,
on
right?
the tournament, right?" Yeah.
I believe the transparency factor in that regard has really stepped up the last 2 or 3 years.
Damn it, man! You can't go out. That's your home course. What are we doing? You grew up there.
Is it really?
Yes.
Boy, the inside knowledge did not pay off for you this time.
As for Lebioda, good guy. Shot a 69. Nice. 2 under. Good job, Hank. Good job, Hank. Like to see it.
This just in from Adam Rittenberg. Sources confirmed to ESPN that the Pac-12 has a plan in place to play a 10-game league-wide schedule beginning September 19th. That was first reported elsewhere, Rittenberg crediting that source. But the model has flexibility on dates for league title game. I'm still trying to play a league title game. Okay. But September the 19th start date for the Pac-12 as of right now, 10-game league-wide schedule.
That story originally broke with the San Jose Mercury News, just to make sure that gets proper credit. Andrea Adelson also had it, Tom. So they're leaving open some weeks just in case, according to one source who did not want to be named. The 10-game plan is not completely done, as there remain a few nuances to be worked out, and university presidents still must approve the plan. One option would be staying with the usual 9-game schedule. A final scheduling decision is expected to be announced next week to shift from a 9-game to a 10-game league schedule. Various models had to be run. Teams in opposite divisions had to be paired together, and those in need of a home game also helped determine those matchups. So we'll see if this transpires or not, especially given that you have some teams in the state of California. Problematic. But one thing to note here is they're under tremendous pressure. And I spoke to somebody with inside knowledge of college football and the networks, ESPN, et cetera, and the pressures that they're facing. Talked with 2 people in the last 24 hours that I consider to be really good sources on this kind of stuff. And they said, look, make no mistake, ESPN, whom we work for, and others are putting tremendous amounts of pressure on these universities and these athletic departments in the Power 5 conferences to play some sort of schedule, to get creative, to figure out a way to play football games. The economic realities of not playing college football at all are too overwhelming to not exhaust every possibility to put together some semblance of a season. And these networks aren't saying it has to happen or else. I mean, they can't have, that's a PR nightmare. But behind the scenes, they're talking with presidents and athletic directors and saying, you got to do whatever you got to do. We got to get a return. I mean, if you think about ESPN and what they invested in the SEC network and the ACC network in particular, they want to see some games played. And to be sure, these teams, these athletic departments, these universities, they too, if at all possible, want to play said games. They've got to recoup some money somehow, some way. So they're under intense pressure. I say that to say this. You're going to begin to hear these kinds of stories leak out, that these kinds of discussions are happening, that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 in this case, and the ACC and the SEC, they're working overtime, double time, all the time to try to figure something out, to get into a room and say, what can we do? What's the safest way forward? Can we play some games? Is it an 8-game schedule? Is it a pod? Is it a home and home? Do I got to play Georgia Tech 3 times in 1 year? I don't know. But can we get on a bus and go play UCF? Will you give us an and one? What do we have to do? And that's the reality. That's the stark reality. They know that if they don't play, it all goes to hell in a handbasket. You're cutting sports. I mean, you go back to it now a couple weeks ago when Stanford had to cut 11 sports. That should have been eye-opening for all. They've got more money than they know what to do with. You're talking about a university that is so well endowed, and you're, in addition, it graduated world leaders. These are earth shakers. These are the elite of the elite of the elite that have given back to that school across every forum. I mean, it's sports, it's business, it's the arts. It's an ancient school, and they're making those kinds of cuts. Most of the other schools aren't like that. They're not Notre Dame or Michigan or these places like that. They can't afford to have this happen. They will have to cut the vast majority of their Olympic sports. And they know this, and it's a stark reality, and they're going to do whatever they can to try to get some games under their belt.
Here's the interesting thing, too, is some leagues, I heard Chuck Oliver talking about this a couple of weeks ago, some leagues and some divisions might be in a better position to handle COVID than, say, the Power Five. And maybe those leagues try to play through the fall to give inventory to the networks that are seeking inventory, see ESPN, or maybe even some of the network channels, the conference channels. Maybe they'll sign a little deal.
Well, the Ivy League would have been one of those, but they chose not to. They don't need it.
So Chuck posited the MAC, the Mid-Atlantic, because a lot of these destinations are drivable. And then there are some FCS groups that could probably put something together, patch something together. Because when this came down and I was reading it out loud, I thought initially, oh boy. So if they're going to 10 conference games, I don't know that you're going to walk that back when times are better. I don't know that you're going to go back to a 9-game conference slate and schedule an FCS opponent who could make their budget by playing you. That's where I get worried.
Yeah, you get worried, yeah.
These budgets will bounce back over the next 5 years. There's going to be some real hard times between now and then.
There's also going to be a change in the way they do business. This is
Correct.
all going to change.
Which means that the runoff down to these other programs who are creating athletic budgets by taking a beating on a random Saturday before the rivalry game in November, right? Those schools, what is their model going to be moving forward? Is there a model for them to exist? And that is really scary. And I hope for the good of the game, right? It's almost like MLB. You're talking about, wow, 40 major leagues or minor league cities, you're just going to say goodbye to them?
Just axe.
You know what? Your game grows at the rate it does, and the quality of play is so high because you have how many levels of minor league baseball? Well, the FCS is really important, too, to the game of football.
Sure, Jimbo used to champion that cause. Absolutely, he did, and others certainly recognize that. I want to hyper-focus on this, though, today because I think it is a positive step. Now, again, we don't know if this is doable. If the numbers aren't there and the health risk is too great, then it's not doable. But this is the first, you can't overlook this. This is the first concrete plan or whisper of a plan in place by a Power 5 conference to say, not only are we playing, we're going to give you tentative dates that we're playing and how many games we're playing. That has not been done, not even by the Big Ten. You know, the Big Ten floated out conference only and would proceed accordingly, and that was the first window into the thought process that every man for himself exists right now. What you can do may not be what I can do, may not be what he can do, but we're going to do whatever we can do, and it's different for everybody depending on what region of the country you're in and who your governor is and what your president of the university thinks, etc. But we're going to do what we can do. And that was the first whisper of that. Now the Pac-12 has come out and said, yeah, and we're going to play. And here's the time we're going to play, and this is the amount of games. Now, we'll see. We'll see. It's one thing to say that. You can posit things all day long, and then is that something you can actually do?
I have a feeling that the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 will announce things pretty close together, considering that ESPN houses their conference championship games, and ESPN houses a lot of their own games. The Big 12 doesn't have its own network through ESPN. Longhorn does. But I would think that you're looking at a Fox league, and then I forget what Pac-12 is. It Fox?
They don't really have. Well, they don't.
Their network is like
on
5 TVs across the country.
Yeah, they don't really have a network. Correct.
But the Big Ten can do whatever it wants to do because Fox powers its actual network, so they can operate independent of the other conferences in a way that I don't think the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 can, because ESPN is where they all come back to draw the lion's share of the revenue. So that'll be interesting to me. I know that the Big 12 has a little bit of a deal with Fox, but it's not. If it was such a big deal, they'd house their conference championship game. But here's what scares me, and this is from baseball today, and just apply it to football. So Juan Soto tested positive for COVID.
Yes.
And he will not be playing in tonight's game for the Washington Nationals.
Correct.
This is where it gets a little dicey. Soto's positive test is from 2 days ago. Results came back this morning. All the rest of those tests were negative. But Soto practiced as an asymptomatic carrier with the team later that day. So now the Nationals are on high alert because there's a 2-day turnaround on the test times. Hopefully Soto abided by the regulations, but I would think that over the next 2 days after today's wave of tests, the Nationals need to look very carefully at where their roster sits. Testing has to be better than 2-day return times if you're going to try and have practices from Monday through Thursday.
Well, I just think that with baseball, you may end up being lucky here because, again, that's a sport, it seems to me, that if you adhere to the guidelines and you're spaced out and you're outdoors, even a guy with it practicing amongst his teammates, you're really not around a lot of people in baseball. You're not. You have situations where, yes, if you're a first baseman and a guy gets on first or something like that, but other than that, you're not really in close proximity for prolonged periods of times, having intimate conversations. We're not seeing that right now. I think, though, I do get a little bit uneasy. Sometimes these exhibition games, you've seen the camera pan, and I'm like, these guys are all sitting kind of close, and they're not all
Yeah, in the
wearing
dugout,
masks.
they're chilling.
Yeah, there's a bit. They need to be a little bit more careful, I think, and this might serve to alarm those who had gotten casual.
If I'm in baseball, I'm going and hold my breath because, I mean, if
Well, listen, sorry, this is part of the rosters that they talked about, the exceptions that they're going to have to make. If your team is in real trouble and you have 4 or 5 guys test positive, well, get ready for a bunch of guys you've never heard of to come in and get their head kicked in because we're playing.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. If it's a 2-day lag time, you got to clean that up a little bit. I mean, he was able to practice the day he got tested as an asymptomatic. And, I mean, I'll bet the coaches are going in their mind right now thinking about
How many
who did he get
interactions
close
do they
to,
have?
you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they are. Don't screw this up, baseball. We just welcomed you back. Like, really excitedly
Of
welcomed
course,
you back.
it couldn't have been a guy from the nightcap. It had to be a guy from the 7 o'clock first pitch of the season game.
A really, really good player with all kinds of crazy power and nerves of steel. He's an insane individual.
Yes, he is. He's the one
Not afraid.
who grabbed the boys and then stuck his tongue out at Greinke in the World Series for the whole world to see. Nobody talked about that.
Well, it's the kind of competitor that he revealed himself to be, and knowing that Greinke is shaky at times, I'm sure that was intentional.
That was like something out of the NWO in 1998, though. That was, ooh.
It revealed a mindset that if he's on your team, you like. Other than that, you don't. Let's just put it that way.
There's nothing coming on at all.
number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 97 ESPN Radio. Hello. Good to be with you. Great to be with you, in fact. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate your time. Appreciate who you are. Hanging in there? Doing okay? You guys all right? Everybody safe? Feeling upbeat? Your mental health all right? You can email the show if you like, jcs at 97.espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at jcameron show, WTSM app on your mobile devices. We are on YouTube today. Hello, opening day. Good to be with you. Good times. Hello, baseball. Welcome back. Needed it. Desperately needed it. Byron Turner has committed to Florida State. 6'4", 230-pound defensive end, 2021, St. Augustine, New Orleans, Louisiana. There you go. That's the bio there. He is 30 scholarship offers from the likes of Florida, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and others. It's a good get.
Is considered to be a player with significant upside as a true pass rusher. Got good size.
Come on, man. We haven't had one in some time.
And it will be another player because he's a 3-star at the moment. It's another player that I'm interested to see when signing day happens.
Go upwards to a 4.
Right, December or February.
Because you're looking for evaluation skills.
Well, that's what we need. That's where it's critical. And
I don't think there's any question.
Interesting that Louisiana is a state that we go poach a player in. We've got an irregular map this year. If you look at the commitments, we have to because we don't have the relationships with the state of Florida, and we're in a position where we can't forge them right now.
Sing that song, buddy. Got to think outside the box and make it happen. Evaluate from all over the country to bolster your roster, raise the floor, and hopefully allow for successes in otherwise areas that we don't spend a lot of time recruiting or have had very little success recruiting. I know this. We always look at the offer sheet. If you're offered by Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and others, Florida, it's a good sign. A&M in particular, they recruit. I mean, Jimbo hasn't just stopped recruiting like he did at the end of his tenure here. He has recruited, and there have been robust hauls so far for him. That's one of the things that he hasn't slacked off. The wins aren't there. A lot of the wins aren't there for him just yet, but the recruiting victories are there.
They are, and I was thinking about this last night, honestly, just some of the games, the close shaves that they've had, wins and losses alike. Mm-hmm. He and Mond didn't work. And they might have another year together. That ain't working. And we know what it looks like when it does and does not work with Jimbo.
Mond's not the player.
Right.
He's not the player. I don't care if you're the 5-star that is a dual threat. Jimbo does not incorporate that element of a quarterback skill set into his offense all that well. He does so kicking and screaming. He will tell you differently, but it's just simply not true. He wants a pocket passer. He wants a man that can move a little bit in the pocket, but who gets the progressions and understands where he's going with the football and why.
This is the interesting turning point for him, though, in his career as a head coach was 2012 to 2013. Remember, he was apologizing before the 13 season started, essentially to E.J. Manuel as the opening presser.
Yeah, pointed it out, yes.
Sometimes you tell him something to tell him something. It was a mea culpa moment, but he wanted E.J. to run more, and E.J. didn't after the injury against Oklahoma.
Got hurt, yeah.
And so since then, he's had the greatest pocket passer this program has ever seen. And I don't know what happened after that. We had some plays that were designed pretty nicely for Frenchie before he got killed, and that was an annual occurrence.
But he didn't really run the ball that well anyhow.
No, the best run he called for Frenchie, because the Ole Miss game he mostly improvised, was the game sealer against Miami on the road, the block at the Rock.
It was a huge play.
Got the first down there.
Yeah.
But other than that, he hasn't called it. He called it much more aggressively with the dual threat game with Ponder and EJ as he was ascending. But the Mond thing looks more like the EJ relationship than it does any other relationship from here.
But he's also not an accurate passer is the problem. But I would say this. I think if Jimbo has his druthers, he wants a guy to sit back there and sling it. If he doesn't, and he knows he doesn't, and maybe he doesn't have the roster that he wants, then he'll incorporate the legs. He'll do that. But A&M's roster is pretty well filled out, and I think his belief is we've got guys to distribute the ball to. I don't need you to run around.
Yeah.
And then so you have this juxtaposition. It's interesting.
Well, that's a scary thing. That's what I was thinking last night. It was like, yeah, it's hilarious that they're all talking about the same things that we did when we were pissed off at Jimbo. But if he did get, not even Jameis, but if he got a guy like Ponder where he's like-minded and you can really delve into the offense and you can get into his brain and you can have a simpatico relationship,
Well,
They could turn some heads.
Well, that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on the moment for it to happen. But remember, the big complaint is that everything has to be perfect for that to happen. Everything has to come together at just the right time. You have to find that guy who sees the matrix, who gets it. Oh, good luck, man.
Well, and then in the crunch time, right, he needs not throw up all over himself. Or against a team that he's not supposed to lose to, he needs not throw up all over himself.
That's the bigger one, because I always felt like we played pretty well in big games when we were right. When we were right, I mean, as prepared as you were going to be on the road at Clemson in one of those environments, I mean, he played well. Obviously, what we did to our rivals, et cetera, in these big moments. But he would lose a game to, inexplicably, a team that had no chance to beat you.
You could argue that that's how good the 13 team was when they overcame the Auburn game. We weren't prepared for that game. Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm not sure that we weren't prepared. Jameis didn't play well early, and then also they knew our plays.
Part two is not being prepared for all. I mean,
part two is not accounting for everything, but it wasn't a lack of preparedness when it comes to play calling. It wasn't like he was throwing up on himself with play calling.
But if these guys are usually over the top paranoid, you would think that this would be a baseline thing to be paranoid
He admitted it
about.
afterwards, and then he tried to walk it back after originally admitting it. I was at that morning press conference. It was only later that he began to walk that back, thinking that it looked bad on him.
Yeah.
But initially, I admired the fact that he admitted it.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty objective to say that it does look bad on him, that you didn't account for the fact that somebody might know your signals.
We won the game, baby.
That's true.
We don't need to worry about it.
That's what he would say.
That's all.
Don't you worry. Results, not process.
We
Results.
won. We won. Doss, did we win the game? Did we win it, Doss? You got a ring on your finger?
That was so wild that he was out by us when we got down to the field.
Awesome. We sat and talked with him.
On the 5-yard line by the end zone that Kelvin caught the ball. Meanwhile, everybody's on the other half of the field celebrating. He wanted the moment to himself so he could look around and take it in.
And we ruined it by walking
sure
up to him
did.
and start talking. No, he wanted to see his kids celebrate because he's a good person. I don't think he was a great coach, but he's a good person, meaning Doss. We could have turned more than 2 people to the NFL in his time here at the position. More than 2.
It's a great Knoll. It's a great Knoll.
Byron Turner, 14th commitment for the class of 2021. I like kids out of Louisiana on the defensive side of the ball. I like that we wrestled them away from the likes of an Oklahoma and a Florida. That's a good sign.
Here's the danger. He gets so good and high ranked that LSU comes calling. So stay underrated, young man.
Sir, you'll never see the field at LSU. You got to know who you are. Come here. We have a lack of speed off the edge. You got a chance to make a difference right now.
Did you see our Twitter video today? I mean, that's all you need.
Well, the problem is if we're battling videos, LSU does it better than anybody. So
the Burrow video is like the greatest thing ever made.
It is. It makes me want to root for them. I'm like, oh, you've got me. I've been snowed. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. kinds of contracts are signed, I'm left speechless. I shouldn't be by now. We've documented these kinds of deals for years. We've watched the escalation of salaries for superstar players in their, within the realm of each sport, we've seen certain numbers that are staggering. But in baseball, I think in particular, that all these sports, we look at it, we go, okay, that's a big deal relative to what everybody else makes. But I'm always reminded that these are guaranteed numbers for the guys that get it in baseball. Like Trout's contract is so much greater than that of Patrick Mahomes' contract because he'll see all 400+ million of his contract, regardless of what happens with him moving forward. Shatters his knee, can never play again, all that money's his. It's not true of Mahomes. So now add another to the list. And, you wondered when Mookie Betts turned down the money he did from Boston at the time, would this pay off? And then the pandemic hit, and you're kind of, well, this will be interesting. But it's worked out. It's worked out. And here we are in the midst of all this, and Mookie Betts signs a 12-year, $365 million contract extension with the Los Angeles Dodgers. That is rather remarkable. The extension that Trout signed at the time to his existing deal was a 10-year, $360 million deal above and beyond what he was already making. At that point, I think they had pretty well confirmed that he was the player they thought him to be. and clearly the Dodgers believe in Betts.
Well, and they're getting him in a way at a discount because if it wasn't for the pandemic, he would have netted a whole lot more than what he's getting. But from what I understand, there is a front-loaded signing bonus that can be paid out to Mookie Betts when he's not a citizen of the state of California. It's $60+ million because he hasn't changed his residency yet, and so therefore the tax implications of getting that money up front may have put him in a position where he was willing to take a fewer dollars from the Dodgers long term because you're giving him security pre-pandemic, and then also consider this is pre-MLB labor issues. You think we had labor issues a month ago or 6 weeks ago? Wait till we get to the end of the calendar year of 2021. So this is a very good deal for Mookie to lock in now, considering the economic implications of what we're going through in the short term as a country, but then the long-term economic implications of a work stoppage in the next year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win without question, and they certainly love the player. I mean, here's a guy who comes in February from the Red Sox. They got him and David Price at that time, and they, you look at the 4 Gold Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers. He's been an MVP, he won a World Series ring. I mean, he's been an accomplished player, obviously, but when he got to L.A., everything you read, if you read the L.A. Times today and you read the various articles documenting this deal, the thing he showed more than anything else was this passion for winning, wanting to win big. And he spoke to the team on the first day of camp. He said basically he wasn't coming to Los Angeles to win an 8th consecutive division title. Nice shot at the Dodgers for coming up short as often as they have in the biggest moments of the World Series because they've done everything there is to do. My dad points this out frequently as a Giants fan that, boy, it's nice to see them win so many divisions.
Well, how a good 5-year stretch or 6-year stretch will change your tune on a lot of things.
Especially when you bring in 3 rings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a difference maker indeed. It's the kind of fun we frequently had and still do all these years later with the Atlanta Braves for amassing so many division titles.
And very likely they're going to win one again in the next month or two.
So many. Let's go to the case with the World Series championship trophies. Let's go take a look at those. Not as many. Not nearly as many.
And at that time, there was a wild card, wasn't there?
Later on, in the midst of all that, right? Yeah.
So they put together 14 straight, 14 cracks at it. They did get the one. They got the one. They got the singular World Series title. It's like Sean McKeel. He got
his major.
Ran
into one.
Locked it down. Jim Furyk got the major. That's good.
Danny Willett got his major.
There it is.
Danny Willett got his major.
How about Immelman before he got every broadcasting job known to man with his brother?
It feels that way, doesn't it? Because if it's not one Immelman, it's the other, and they sound exactly the same.
What shaky deal did the Immelman brothers need to engage in to make that happen?
We've never quite explored the Immelman deal because Trevor who is only known because he won a Masters and not a damn thing else, has largely ignored the Jeff Cameron Show inspection, which is, that ain't your hair, Trevor. That ain't your hair, pal. I remember Trevor Immelman winning the Masters. I remember thinking, that's dying grass, young man. That's dying grass.
So last week, this was a cardinal sin for broadcasting, and I couldn't believe it happened. And it was Brian Katrick, who works for Sirius XM PGA Tour channel, and he also does PGA Tour Live.
That's
He's
channel
on
92 for those of you.
Yeah, could have heard it last night. A wonderful program with Rondé Barber.
I had Rondé Barber on. Trey and I did, and it was a great conversation.
So Katrick is doing featured groups with Tiger and Brooks last week, and he's talking about the two on the cut line. And he said no shy of probably 6 times, it's more likely 9 or 10, the last couple of holes, that Tiger's going to miss the cut. That definitively Tiger does not have the score to make the cut. And he said he's got a hole out here from the fairway on his final hole. He's got a hole out here to make the cut. Well, that would be another miscut for Tiger, and this will be his first miscut, definitive terms. He said it a bunch of times, and what happened, Brian? Did you not look at top 65 and ties and see that maybe the course is playing a little bit difficult?
Yeah, that's tough. And
you can't do that.
Yeah, but you know what I'll say here? What has to happen in that situation, somebody who is not so singularly focused on a hole or a group has to see the bigger picture and be in his ear. His producer has to say, don't go there, man. He's got an outside shot of making this cut. The field is really struggling right now. These numbers are backing up. So hold off on the definitive, he ain't going to make the cut. They talk in my ear. I'll tell you something. That's one difference. They talk in my ear more than I'd like. I'm going to tell you that. And I don't host that kind of a show there. I mean, I just do a 1-hour show once a week.
Jeff, you're doing great here. Keep going.
It drives me batty how often they talk in my ear. When my producer is in D.C., we've had producers in New York before, but either way, this is what they do, man. They are talking to you at all times. We got to get to your read here. We got to get to your read. You're in the middle of having a conversation with a guest, and he's making a salient point about something, and they do it a lot. Now, it takes some time to get used to it. It can also be beneficial. In moments like that, it's greatly beneficial to have a producer who's on his game, who knows it's his job to make you look good. Yeah. I mean, that's what you're paid to do, to make sure the guys calling the action know what's what and why.
There's no doubt a producer is a good safety net in that situation, considering the producer had a half an hour to make the point, because that's how long this guy was saying that Tiger was not going to make the cut.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a dumbass as the talent in that situation.
No, of course. No, listen, everybody's got a role
the
to play.
leaderboard. He's looking at the leaderboard, and they'll even graphic it up, and he'll talk about the leaderboard. Hey, man, you know.
What that would have been is a great post-production meeting, because let's just say that had been you and him, and you were producing, and then he was made to look like a fool through his own actions, but you didn't sweep in and save him. Mm-hmm. The talent, and here I'm going to make fun of myself a little bit, their ego would have been hurt because they would have been talked to by somebody above them.
Would have gotten a text from somebody that says, Tiger texted me and said, well, I missed the cut, huh?
Yeah. So he would have been embarrassed. He would have hated to be that wrong, so definitively wrong, repeatedly and loudly. And he would have then said to his producer, what gives, Tom? And you, knowing your role in that moment, which is a different role, it's not a lesser role, it's just a different role, would have said, well, sorry about that. You know,
Stop being an airhead. Think critically.
Not at first, because I know you. You would have just said, sorry about that. You know, I was debating whether to get into your ear, but you were on a roll, and I just thought, okay.
No, that producer should be fired, because if you have 20 minutes of this going on,
right,
all he has to do is hedge once. One time. That's
right.
it.
Right. And so my point would have been, he would have kept bitching at you, and then you would have said, well, man, look at the leaderboard. How many of these have you done? And then we would have had a fun issue. But secondly, I think the other thing is that...
You want me to read the names out for you?
You would not have made the mistake, though, because you would have said in his ear, that's not correct.
After the first time.
We don't know that.
He's going to miss the cut if he doesn't hole out. Hey, dude, hang on.
Yeah.
Because if it's 65 and ties and we're 4 or 5 players away from moving that number, this course ain't playing easy. This ain't the Travelers a few weeks ago.
People are struggling.
What are we doing?
Yeah. No, it is strange. It is strange.
Got to be better than that. They they're a little light in the talent game at the PGA Tour. Little light. Not many broadcasters.
No, not a lot of broadcast.
But then when you get to the network and you get like Tarico and Nancy, it's like, what a breath of fresh air that is.
Well, it lets you know that they're pros and how good they are and how refined they are.
Tarico is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, he's the best in the biz.
Yeah.
No, I mean across sports, there's nobody better. He can do any sport.
He can call any game,
Any
anytime.
sport. Yeah, no, he is silky smooth.
That's
and
why
he gave us the knowing nod.
Well, and NBC hired him because they knew he'd be Al Michaels' heir apparent. They hired him for that reason. Like, this is what we were going to be Bob Costas' studio guy. Once Bob is done, you're going to be Al Michaels' Sunday guy. Once Al is done, we have locked in our future. We're all set with Tarico.
I'll give him credit, man, because I think you can throw that guy in the middle of the Olympics, turn around and throw him into a sport, the NBA. You could throw him into the NFL. You could throw him into golf.
That's what I mean about
you can throw him anywhere.
The Costas gig. That's what they're thinking, that he's going to be the guy with the fireplace in the background,
sure.
You know, where Costas is for Olympic coverage. And if they sign any deal, right, if they were to get back into the NBA on NBC game,
he can do it.
Like, I'll be your first guy.
And he would do it fine. And you know he'd be prepared and he'd do a seamless job. Yeah, no, there are very few people like him. I think he's also an incredibly nice man. Look, I know I read the ESPN book, whatever allegations there were all those moons ago. I don't know what's real and what's not real. He was alleged to have been a little handsy.
Talk about a boom mic.
But I don't know what's true and what's not true. That was 20-something years ago. I know that he's been fine on the straight and narrow since then, and I do know this. We've run into him, you and I have, broadcasting in Los Angeles for the national championship, and he gave us the knowing nod, one broadcaster to another. He appreciated it, gave us the smile, and he walked forward. And then I spoke with him at the Masters party I was at in Augusta. He was there in the kitchen, yucking it up with everybody watching basketball, sat right next to me as we watched Michigan. And it was amazing. It was just the nicest guy. Down to earth, he was sitting there eating chips, watching the basketball game. He was funny.
This reminds me of when I worked with Hubie Brown.
He would just sit there. He was watching the game, and he's like, "Oh, this is a great game. Does anybody need?" I mean, he literally got up and asked if anybody needed anything to eat.
Well, maybe he should call over to SiriusXM or, not SiriusXM, PGA Tour Live, the video product, and say, "Do you guys need any help? I could coach. I'll give you a Zoom lesson."
It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Well, I know it's baseball season, and they're coming out of summer camp. You got to make sure you call it summer camp, not spring training. They're snooty that way.
They can go to hell.
But that said, I got really pumped up today, Tom, when you showed me Seattle's new nickname and the logo and what's going to happen with the NHL and this new franchise. I like the city of Seattle. I've been there, and my nephew got his undergrad from Seattle University, small school in the heart of the city, before he went on to UVA, and we visited him out. I like that city. Now, it's going through some things right now, but I like that city, and I like the sports fans there. I got to hang out with several of them because I went to a Mariners game and all that, and they're passionate fans. And so if you think back with them losing the basketball team and how much frustration there was surrounding that, the Supersonics should have never gone anywhere. That was a cool franchise. I am so happy for them to get the Kraken because, A, that's a kick-ass nickname for any sports franchise, but it's fitting for Seattle, and it's a really cool name and logo, I might add, for an NHL team. That is absolutely perfect. And so they if you guys haven't seen it, go online and watch the unveiling and the rollout promotion that they did. It's perfectly done, and they become the NHL's 32nd team. It's obviously a nod to the mythical sea creature that we've actually talked about, the Kraken, on the show before and had fun with it. And they get this twisting S shape in an homage to the old Seattle Metropolitans. That was the city's first pro hockey team way back in 1917. They won the Stanley Cup, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't until the rollout. I saw the announcement, and the GM, Todd Lewicki, who was involved, the Lewicki brothers were involved in the Lightning as they were overhauling from a god-awful organization to what they are today. And he said, we're going to bring it back to Seattle. I was like, back?
Yeah, and then you looked it
Back
up.
to Seattle?
Yeah.
And then I found it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The NHL Board of Governors approved Seattle's expansion bid. That was in December of 2018. It will become, they're slated to play 2021, 2022. It will become the city's first winter sports franchise since the Supersonics, who relocated to Oklahoma City. That was back in 2008 already. That's 12 years ago. The league receives an expansion fee of $650 million. That's up from $500 million that Las Vegas just paid. So in that short amount of time, and that was 17-18 when Vegas came into the league. So from 2017, 2018, they paid a cool $500 million. Now it's $650 million.
That is a welcome payment. Of course, they've made all of their previous payments on time, and they're scheduled to make their final one in March of next year without any delay, which is huge for the NHL. You need every dollar you can get, and if the league, I don't know if they dole it out and evenly divide it among the teams or how it works, but if they did, you're making over $20 million a team. I'm sure the owners could use that right about now as they're projecting what their numbers are going to look like for the next regular season.
Sure.
They're losing a little bit the playoff teams from the gate in the postseason, but they got most of their TV dollars from the regular season.
They've really salvaged something here. If this goes off without a hitch, I'm really happy for the NHL.
And the playoff TV money is really good, too, for them. So they're not going to feel the loss mostly until next season. But this is a good little insurance policy.
That ownership group, so you know, includes billionaire investment banker David Bonderman, Hollywood producer Jerry Bruckheimer, you guys all know who that is, and touts Todd Lewicki as its CEO. The organization hired Hall of Famer Ron Francis as its first GM. He had been with the Carolina Hurricanes. It is yet to name a coach. It's pretty cool. They're going to play in Climate Pledge Arena. You've read that, I'm sure. The NHL's regular season obviously resuming on August the 1st. That's right around the corner as we sit here today welcoming back baseball.
We're looking at 6 hockey games a day, 3 each in the 2 hub cities, Edmonton and Toronto, staggered start times. So for about 12, 13 hours a day, you've got hockey on your television screen, should you want it. And I do. I very much do.
Well, and as somebody who has over time rather enjoyed checking the goal and a half any given night that you're looking at and totals. We're going to have to get into a new rhythm. This is going to be different. We're going to have to figure some things out. You never really know.
I would probably skew under early.
I mean,
think,
Big Daddy's going to have to do his homework.
I think clogged neutral zones, heavy feet, and good goaltending will probably be
Carry
the
the day
story of
early?
the first few games. Yeah, I would think so.
The key will begin to find the trend when the surge happens, when you realize that folks have got their sea legs and skill is rising.
But it's really hard to figure because if the skill is rising and they've got their touchback, you're still playing playoff style hockey.
Wow. So the intensity and the ruggedness in which those games are played are what lure fans to the game to begin with, which is why I'm excited for folks to watch this, because they're going to have a much larger group of viewers than they ordinarily would, given their desperation for live sports and it's a race.
Yeah, well, I also think it'll be interesting, too, because the season itself is a grind. You're playing 82 games over
Correct.
6 months, and your body is hurting. And then you got to go through another 2 months if you're going to win the whole thing. They're coming into this fresh.
Oh, everybody's
So-
fresh, and a lot of guys had time to get healthy that would have missed most of the games late, including Stamkos.
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh benefits from it, too, because
Yeah.
it seems like Crosby or Malkin's always hurt, and now they're both fine. But it's just the ferocity that these guys play with in the playoffs. It's noticeable. The difference is noticeable if you're in the building on TV. But if they're healthy and they're capable of doing that, this could be quite the violent experience.
I'm all for that. I love organized chaos and violence as it pertains to competition, and that sport in particular. There's nothing like the elevated levels of intensity that is playoff hockey. And if you're trying to convert somebody, or you yourself out there listening would like to be converted because you recognize that these are strange times and you need more sports in your life, not less sports in your life, and it's been difficult to come by, and you've heard from friends or even your friends here at ESPN Radio over the years that once you get into playoff hockey, you become a fan for life. Well, this is it, right? Here's your chance. You don't have that many distractions.
I could tell you from playing the game, being around the game now for almost 30 years, they're going to need crowd noise, because if they don't, it's going to be an F-bomb fest. There are few athletes in this world more vulgar with the F-bomb than a hockey player.
Well, that's
And if they just do sounds of the game, they cannot broadcast it on NBC. They would run out of money.
Yeah.
I know it's a very, very profitable enterprise, and I know their parent company is rich as hell. They would run out of money.
it's worked. I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised. We've noted it so far, whether it's Premier League, Major League Baseball, it has worked. From the standpoint of if you're just at home on your couch watching your big screen and enjoying the sport, you really don't notice the cheesiness of them piping in crowd noise, because it's what you're accustomed to. It's what you would ordinarily hear if you flipped on a game. Tottenham's playing, you throw it on, okay, and you hear the chants. You don't really think about the fact, well, that's over a recording because there are no fans there. You just like, okay, that's the sound that I'm accustomed to. Major League Baseball, same thing for me.
Not everybody's gotten it right. The other night on MLB Network, they had a game from the new Texas ballpark, which does look unbelievable.
I can't wait to see it. I'm excited. I don't know how I wasn't watching that.
God,
but yeah.
sir,
What
behind
night
home
was
plate.
this? Where the hell was I?
This is 2 nights ago.
Ugh.
So, and it's the late game. It was the 9 o'clock game. And
Still not in bed at 9.
well, no, it starts at 9 though, so it's their late game. But they have behind home plate and around home plate. These are all like high top community VIP bar areas. It's not seating. You're used to seeing.
Well, and I read about that. I remember
man
that last
paying it.
week, yeah.
But just the look of it, it
Oh,
looks like
it's gonna be cool.
It looks like an open seating club level, but it's right behind home plate.
State of the art. Yeah.
Anyway, their crowd controls in the broadcast
Of the
were
art.
terrible. They were terrible. And like they were making fun of it on the broadcast. Even last night, they had a rough go on the Cubs broadcast. So I think the regional producers need to get their crap together.
Get
but
it together,
the,
guys.
The national people will probably have it on lock.
Well, all I know is that watching the Pirates play the other night, that was exceptional. Whoever was in charge of that was...
You've got a good broadcast. The big markets have good broadcasts, although I was surprised by the Cubs. Last night, Mark Grace was making fun of it. He's like, and the crowd goes wild, I guess. Huh. Okay, I'm not going to get used to that, guys.
Yeah.
And then he breaks down what he sees in the plays. Ooh, well,
Ruthless.
need to work on the faders a little bit.
Well, hopefully they'll get it right. It'll be interesting to see what the NHL does with that, but There are so many. I mean, the sounds of an NHL playoff hockey game, or just a regular season game in general. Hockey is, it's sensory overload at times.
Well, yeah, the F-bombs are the hard part, but the sounds of hockey, the skates, and then the
sound of the
passing,
sticks and,
the sound
you
of
know,
the puck hitting a stick on a pass,
Yeah.
The rattling of the boards.
Yes.
I remember the first time I plugged in my sound system in college. Like, you're like, all right, I can have it loud at night.
Here we
My
go.
parents won't get mad at me.
Right.
Shook the whole damn place. I had to turn the bass down because the rattling of the boards
Yeah,
is just, it'll wake you up.
Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Oh, man, roll my eyes at the ignorance, but here you go. University of Pittsburgh Athletic Director Heather Lyke asked the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to prohibit betting on collegiate sports during a hearing yesterday in Washington, D.C. We really need to worry about some other things, Heather. But that said, she appeared remotely, testified that presidents of the ACC schools, all of them, Tom, unanimously opposed gambling on collegiate sports over concerns for the well-being of the student body. What? We urge Congress to directly address gambling on intercollegiate athletics and prohibit it. In 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992. That was known as PASPA. The federal statute that had restricted regulating sports betting to primarily Nevada. Since then, though, the ruling, legal sports books have opened, obviously, in 18 states and the District of Columbia, I might add, with a handful more states prepping to launch sports betting. Yes, they are. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, the chairman of the committee, agreed with Lyke, expressed concerns that people in the business of betting compared to casual bettors are a threat to influence the games for gambling purposes. Quote, I think there is a lot of betting that people in the office will fill out the sheet, but none of us are going to get influence or have the influence over the outcome of games because we're putting $20 in and maybe you win 200, said Graham. I'm not saying that's right, but that's a different problem than people who are in the business of gambling who would really make a lot if a game went one way or the other.
Wasn't he the guy in the Banditos commercials?
Lindsey Graham?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Bill Miller, president and CEO of the American Gaming Association, my man, testified in person and pointed to the billions of dollars that estimated to be wagered annually on college sports with offshore sports books and local bookmakers who are not licensed or even regulated. We realize some stakeholders remain concerned about bets being placed on collegiate events based primarily on the presumption that unpaid amateur athletes are more at risk of being corrupted by those seeking to influence the outcome of games. While that may indeed be the case, it is also perhaps the most compelling reason to apply strict regulations and oversight on the gambling industry. And that only comes if there's a legal market. Drops the mic, walks out, we're done talking. That's always been the case. Shut up, dumbasses. This is not hard.
My lunch has been ravaged by ants and this Bill character.
Onward we move, but this is still a conversation. It's a needless one.
Yeah, sports books, the legal ones, are like the IRS in that they're watching the money.
They're the number one protector of the student athletes they're concerned about. Anything irregular that happens is found out through those books who monitor and regulate because they know that the worst thing that could happen to them is the integrity of the games become questioned. Nobody's betting on a fixed outcome. So you have to ensure that that doesn't happen. And how do you do that? Oversight and regulation through a legal gambling market. That's what's always been the case. It's much safer when gambling's legal than when it's not, when it's done in the shadows, when you do have unsavory characters approaching student athletes to alter the course of a game, any game for that matter. No. That simply doesn't happen when you have a monitoring system in place and the stakes are high to make sure you get it right.
As in the documentary Blue Chips. What a great documentary it was.
In 2019, upwards of $900 million was estimated to have been bet on just college football alone. That was just in the Nevada sportsbook. The NCAA basketball tournament normally attracts at least twice that amount. Get to the Super Bowl, and we're looking at an even bigger number. We ain't going back, man. Stop trying to pull us back. Across the board. Let's go. Stupid. But we'll see. I just saw that. I was like, oh, come on, ACC presidents. Educate yourself. Unanimously, we're scared. Oh, that's a gesture. That's posturing.
If anything, it puts you in a position to have to compensate your athletes now, sooner.
Well, and they do, by the way. They are now $500 to $1,000 a month. Student athletes get that.
No, higher, because you know what? I'm sorry, the stakes of the gambling game, the scary gamblers and loan sharks,
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay a little bit more than that. Just a little bit more to insulate yourself from the temptation.
Yeah, it's absurd. Well, and there, anyhow, and as it pertains to professional athletes, it simply can't happen, right? I mean, you would need a player in a prominent position to influence the outcome of a basketball game, say LeBron, and he already makes too much money to want to take your money, and there are limits. So it's not like you could do enough.
Right. The only way you can make it work is, I suppose, in a fight game, right? That is dangerous. Think back to the classic South Park episode with Jesus fighting the devil.
Right.
And there's only one bet. Nobody knows who bets on Jesus. And they're figuring it was Jesus himself or God or something along those lines. And then he barely grazes the devil's chin. And, the devil's all ripped. And the devil falls 10 count. And he goes,
Yeah.
I just took all your money. I was the one who placed the wager.
Yeah, of course.
So that would be a spot where it'd be dangerous, perhaps in a one-on-one sport.
Tennis, boxing, one-on-one sports.
The lower level guys especially. But the problem is, by the time you get to Joker or Fed, you're running into the LeBron issue, which is too much money.
Not enough money. Yeah.
They make already a ton, hand over fist.
Yeah, it's people just need to read more about that. It's fascinating. But I read that today and rolled my eyes and thought, we don't have more pressing concerns here.
But if you were Tyson and you're fighting Buster Douglas and you're like, all right, listen, people, I never told you this. Put $5 million on Buster Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. That is quite lucrative.
But the problem with that is this. Like I say, there are limits.
Mm-hmm.
So
you'd have to spread it across multiple bets.
Well,
multiple
but this
places.
is the stuff that's monitored and picked up on. When that kind of action comes in, these casinos and these outlets all talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing a heavy influx of $5, $10, $100 million being put on a 40-1 underdog? Did you have that wager come in? Yes, I did. Okay. Well, we need to take a closer look at what the hell's going on here.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. That they're alerted when something bizarre like that happens because it's regulated, because they don't want the integrity of the sport to come into question. Moreover, they don't want to lose their ass. So they're immediately going to look at that and say, "Oh no, that doesn't work. That's something's not right here. Shut it down. It's off the books. We're not doing it."
That's why even if you were Biff Tannen, you'd have to be very careful about how you won all those long shots. He's making the papers for winning long shots.
Right.
He would have died. That character would have been shot before he had a hotel of his own. Because if he's Mr. Longshot,
Yeah.
come on.
No.
By the time you make the paper, they're looking at you. They're gonna ban you from Vegas, so you're gonna have to go to Jersey, and then you have to go internationally. There's no way you amass that much of a fortune. It's impossible.
No. That's the thing. It's funny when you go back and look at that. That was the part that you love, though. The idea that you knew the outcome of all the games. You're like, oh, I could. But me as a kid seeing those movies, I remember thinking, well, I would win $500 from my friend Charlie. Like that was the extent of
The
the way
locker pool.
Yeah, that's the way
Yeah.
I thought about it. Final hour forthcoming. Coach Leonard Hamilton going to join us in that hour for a long form discussion. Should be great. Stay with us. of the Jeff Cameron Show, at least for today. Thanks for tuning to it. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free always. Don't miss anything, but if you do, go back, get caught up at your leisure. All 3 hours posted upon the conclusion of the show. We appreciate you if you're so inclined to rate the show 5 stars there when you catch up on iTunes and share it with others. You can email the show if you like, jcs at 97.espnradio.com. We are on YouTube. Hello, YouTubers. Happy opening day. I'm sure you're sporting your squad's gear today. I know Tom is with his Mets cap. Got my Buccos cap on today.
Yeah, I was going to walk out of the house with a different hat on, and I stopped. I said,
It's opening day.
I'll wear the Gary Carter tomorrow, but I can go get my Mr. Met hat. So let's do that.
Meet the Mets. Yeah, no, I like that cap. It's a good-looking cap. Your best caps are those spring training caps that have the multicolor, the orange with the blue and the guy on it. Seen those?
Oh, you like those?
I do like those. I mean, I hate orange and blue, but it's the Mets, so what are you gonna do? That's the one.
Yeah, it's the Mr. Met hat.
It's the Mr. one. Okay, you are wearing that one. I thought it was the all blue one. I've seen you wear a variety of Mets caps.
I usually get a new one every year on opening day. This year, I don't really feel like it.
That's the best cap you got right there. That's the. I mean, for your Mets, it's a good cap.
Just modeling it for the YouTube. There he is. What a mascot. What a mascot.
Man.
One of the best mascots.
Leonard Hamilton going to join us later this hour, and it's going to be great. You're going to like the interview. In the interest of transparency, I'll tell you, I did this interview yesterday with him. We were trying to meet schedules and make things work, and he carved out some time, gracious with his time. So it's a good 25 minutes, long form with me and Coach Hamilton. It's funny. You'll hear it at the very end of the interview. I don't want to spoil anything, but, I was his first interview when he got hired at Florida State. And he came on the show, and I can still remember talking to him then. At that time, he was fresh off a media stint where he was doing media and working with the media. And he talked about how much he respected the media. And I said, well, I'm going to like this guy. We're going to be all right at that point. But he asked me at the end of this, so you interviewed me when I had hair. And I missed an opportunity because I should have said, yes, and so did I. Yes, we both had beautiful locks. Well, I don't know about locks, but we had hair. But alas, time waits on no one. It's okay, but you know what? He's thriving. What an end-of-career run this guy's on. And he's wise in a way that I think we can all learn from. Right about now, it feels good to do so. I saw where Florida State posted, they've gotten so much better from a social media standpoint and in promoting and Seminole Productions. We used to kind of cringe when the new stuff would come out. And
they had a wave in there. It was like 2010, 2011 when Jimbo first took over, and they did all these videos, and you're like, okay,
here we go.
We're in the party now.
Yeah.
And then they put, Nike Vapor gloves on Dr. King.
It's a toughie. That was a mistake. That was unfortunate. It's not what you do.
No.
Not what you do.
Never.
No. And they doubled down because there were multiple mistakes made in a run of about a year that made us frequently laughed at. That was a difficult time, Tom.
I mean, you're kind of surprised on Lincoln's birthday that they don't have John Wilkes Booth with a spear in his hand or something.
It was a toughie. It was a toughie, but they're so much better now. Back to the point, they do a great job now, and it fires you up. Keep climbing, yeah. It's kind of hard, though.
It's very corporate. That's a very corporate thing that feels like something you'd have in the lunchroom or the break room. When you're, looking at the vending machine and you're saying, do I want to spend the $1.25 on the Fritos? I don't know why they upped it from $1. That's really frustrating. And you're just staring at the climb sign. But still, if the players buy into it, I don't give a damn what the slogan is.
I really, and it's an understatement, it's the understatement of the year, I really desperately hope, it is only hope now, I don't know the path or the solution to get to make this a reality, but I really hope this staff gets a chance to show off their acumen, their organization, and their messaging that has, I think, been effectively adopted by the football players, because I think it's going to lead to obviously a much better, more refined product. I think even if it's limited in scope, if we're only able to see 6 games or 8 games, whatever that might be, I just something in the way of a football game or games have to be played for them to really get the benefit of what I think is collectively a smart, hardworking, well-organized, effectively communicative staff that, it will reveal itself, and that will turn into, I think, a recruiting boon. But they cannot get there without games, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But that's the reality. I mean, there's a lot at stake. Of course there is. And it's more important that everybody be safe and make sure that, obviously, if we are able to play, it's with their best interest in mind, the student-athlete, that is. But I am only hoping that some semblance of a season, even if it's played in the spring, something that has to allow them to succeed and showcase what they've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time.
Okay, so it's a 3-horse race, let's say, proverbially, or in the analogy, and you've got Labor Day weekend, October, and spring start, right? These are the 3 horses in the race. Which one's the favorite right now, do you think?
Spring start.
It's not what I wanted to hear. I was hoping October, to be honest. I'll concede that the September one's the long shot, but
I don't think there's any chance of September happening. But I would tell you that I think October's the hope. Of the 3 you laid out there, the hope right now, the fallback is October. I think, listen, they've probably, we had a definitive line in the sand that was drawn about when decisions were going to have to be made. It is now July 23rd. I'm telling you, we jumped over that line and created a new line. I mean, they decided some time ago that it wasn't where they needed it to be at that moment of truth, so they said, well, what do we do? Draw another line, Johnny, because we can't say it's over. We can't. We're headed towards financial ruin if we say it's over. So just draw another line out there in the distance that we won't readily roll up on anytime soon. All right, well, that line's what? Well, how about the end of August? Let's look at things again at the end of August and then hope for a mid-October start. That's sort of the way I believe that they're doing this. They're going to keep pushing until they absolutely can't push no more, and then they'll announce the spring.
But to be clear, they haven't pushed it to late August yet. They're still looking at the end of this month and saying, all right, we'll know by, August 1st, 4th, 7th, somewhere
It just keeps changing. It was the first week in July at one point, then it was the second week in July. We're now in the third week of July. This week is almost over. It's not going to be the fourth week either. They're going to keep pushing because they have to, and I don't blame them. I don't. I understand it. It's a disaster what we're dealing with here. Just a disaster. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of people have lost jobs. And moreover, I think that's something that you have to buckle in and understand is on the horizon as well if this continues to be pushed back. Millions of dollars are being lost every week. And I think ultimately you're going to see more cuts. Olympic sports are in real danger. We understand that. I'm not here to bring everybody down before we have a talk with Leonard Hamilton and it's opening day and all that, but I'm a realist, I'm pragmatic, and I'm going to tell you now that I don't know how there's any way they could start on time. And so when you asked me with the scenario you gave, the 3 scenarios, I'm inclined to believe that at some point they're just going to have to embrace reality and let everybody know that we're playing in the spring. Mm-hmm. I hope I'm wrong. I'd rather the numbers take a turn for the better. Doesn't look like we're headed that way in this country right now. But if it were to happen and you could play in mid to late October to start, that'd be great. I'm for it. I'm hopeful. Just don't believe that that's the reality right now. So,
yeah, I would hope that if that's the case and they say spring for the actual football season, that it opens up a possibility for a spring game type thing, extra practices since we lost the real spring of 2020.
Yes, we did, yes.
Do you just shift everything forward a semester to where we can get some practices in, say, October and then put something together of a jamboree sorts where people, there's inventory for that. And then that doesn't count against you. It doesn't count for anything else. Right.
And then you start in earnest.
It's inventory for the ACC network and all that kind of stuff. That would be pretty smart if you have to go back to the spring.
Well, we shall see. Obviously, it's something we kick around often these days, and feels like I'm a hamster on that wheel over and over and over again. Same conversations, but, information changes. So
here's the key, though. I mean, let's just say that college football does say spring, and that's it. That's the end of it. The NFL at that point would be your only sport from the middle of October through the end of the year in terms of the big ones. Major League
you still
Baseball is
have
going to be
PGA,
done.
You still have PGA.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have the PG, and I like that. That's
Yeah.
fine. But hockey's not going to start. Basketball's not going to start until Christmas, New Year's, something like that in the new season, because they're going to wrap up the previous year in October. So you're talking about a 2-month dead period unless the NFL plays.
The NFL's going to play.
We're used to July now being the dead period for sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're delaying that in some ways, or we've moved that to potentially Halloween, Thanksgiving area if we don't have the NFL.
It's a good thing the Jeff Cameron Show is here for you, folks. We are here regardless. Kicking ass every day. Come on board. Sit on Uncle Jeff's lap. I'm not creepy. It's okay. We'll go down memory lane. We'll look big picture. Coming up next, Leonard Hamilton, head coach, Florida State basketball, joins us. Welcome back, Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. It's always my pleasure to welcome our next guest. He's the head men's basketball coach at Florida State University. He's Leonard Hamilton, and he joins us right now on the Phone Hero hotline. Our thanks to our friends at Phone Hero, specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online, phoneherotlh.com. Coach Hamilton, how are you, good sir?
Doing just fine, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing as well as can be expected, I guess. We're all kind of navigating these choppy waters right now, and it's pretty difficult to do. It's a little frustrating. I know you can't specifically talk about recruits, so I won't go down that road, but what I can talk about is obviously Florida State has, in the last number of years, been able to elevate the level of talent that has committed to Florida State. That is now 6 of the last 7 years as I peruse the recruiting rankings and see that a 5-star has found their way to Tallahassee, Florida. Big picture stuff here, Coach. What changed? And certainly the message now is thriving with the success you and your staff have had over the last number of years.
Well, I'm not real sure we're doing a whole lot different.
Thriving with the success.
Probably we're in a position where we're recruiting probably more to our system than in the past. Sometimes we had to adjust our system to the talent of the guys that we have on the team. And so we had our offense and defensive systems are being found appealing to some guys who have those abilities. If you're a certain kid with certain level of skills, you find yourself attracted to our program because that's what you enjoy doing. And we are concentrating basically on just trying to find the right match. We're not as concerned about whether they're 5-stars or not, but eventually those guys who are maybe not 5-stars come in and improve at a higher level because they're a good fit for who we are and what we do.
Yeah, and you've got it working now in such a way, Coach, where this is a program, and this is not an opinion, this is a fact. It's a program that is alongside the best in the country, the names that most people associate with college basketball greatness, whether that's a Duke or a Kansas or a North Carolina, whatever it might be. Florida State's record goes hand in hand, and in many cases now has been better than those programs over the last handful of years. And I think certainly that shows up. It puts kids on notice that this is a place you can go and play in the best conference in America, succeed at a high level, and still go to the NBA. And it doesn't matter if it's a quote-unquote traditional power. It's a power now. And that puts you in a position, Coach, to maybe turn kids away that you couldn't have in years past. And I know you're not going to disparage any kids, but at the same time, it's got to be a heck of a luxury to know, maybe that 5-star is not a fit for us. We'll go talk to a different kid. That's an amazing place to be at.
Well, there's no doubt that we are in a pretty good place. I think a lot of it's because, I have the greatest basketball assistant coaching staff in the country. I mean, my guys do a great, great job. Stan's been with me now for almost as long as my wife. Coach Bradley, been with me over 20 years. Charlton Young and Steve Smith just do a great, great job. Everybody's vested, high character family men who relate well to the guys, and I've gotten tremendous support from the administration, from the president, and that board of trustees on down to everybody on campus, the athletic director. So we're in a pretty good place. We've had to overcome being in a conference with the #1 basketball program in the history of college basketball. People with 75 or 80 years of successful tradition that's ahead of us. So what we've been able to do is be able to chop away at the tradition by being relevant now. And we keep telling kids, none of those guys who played for those programs 65, 70, 80 years ago are coming back. It's a new day. And our staff has coined the phrase, we new blood in a conference with blue blood. And so the new bloods are here, and this is what we're trying to establish ourselves as a program of significance in a very competitive conference. And our kids take a lot of pride in it. They're extremely competitive, and we're just trying to carve out our little niche, where we can be considered one of the better programs in the country, on and off the court, in the classroom, socially, in every way possible. We're proud to represent the Seminole brand, We want to do it in a fine fashion.
Here we are at the end of July, Coach, and I think back to that fateful day when Florida State was about to embark on an ACC tournament game in the hopes of not only bolstering the resume with a regular season ACC title already in tow, but to take home the tournament championship as well. Of course, we know how that ended. It didn't happen for anybody, and it was most unfortunate. Does it still sting? Are you still frustrated by that? I know you've always weathered storms. You've been a man who's handled adversity your whole life. I want to get more into that in a moment. But, when it comes to competition and kids excel and succeed and they're of high character like your kids are, I know you want the best. You want them to have the opportunity to prove. Perhaps they could have been national champions. We don't know. We'll never know now. Does it still eat at you a little bit, or have you found a place for that?
Well, the answer to your question was I disappointed tremendously because I was still hurt and disappointed from the year before when Phil Kofer lost his father, injured his foot, and David Nichols had Achilles issue. Mm-hmm. We went to the NCAA tournament limping, not at our very, very best. That motivated us the entire season to try to come back and represent ourselves once again. There we were, playing our best basketball at the end of the year, healthy, and going to the tournament, and we were extremely disappointed. Frustrated? No. That's part of life. I told them, if this is the only thing negative is going to happen to them in their life, they need to be celebrated because life has a tendency to bring you challenges year in and year out. We were disappointed. We're going to use that to motivate us and come back again. We feel like we've been knocking on the door of the Final Four for the last number of years. If we realize now we got to try to kick the door in. That's our goal. That's our plan. We want to get started at some point during the year, and we want to go and win a national title. We have all the reasons in the world to have a pity party, to be disappointed, not have the energy. We got enough going on to be complaining and feeling sorry for ourselves. Now the true test of your character is how do you handle adversity. And so that's where we are. If our guys do what we've shown that we have the character to do, we'll handle this in a matured fashion, more so than anybody else, and we'll come back and be ready to play whenever that is.
Coach Leonard Hamilton joining me on the Jeff Cameron Show. Coach, in your life, I dare say you've handled and had to overcome adversity. Most of my audience has no idea what that's like, no idea to the extent of the adversity you've had to overcome and how you've had to handle that. And I guess what I'm asking you is for some advice, because you've handled it with grace and class and you've succeeded, but right now is a troubling time for a lot of people. It's a tough time. We know that in America right now. And I'm just curious, what kind of thoughts you have on a daily basis, what kinds of things you do that allow you to succeed in these moments, because a lot of people in my audience, and myself included, we're struggling right now, Coach. It's tough, whether it's certainly what we see right now politically or what we see as we move forward with protests all over the country. And, of course, we're dealing with COVID-19 and the uncertainties that brings. How have you been able to do it in your life?
Well, I've always adhered to the philosophy the true test of a man's character is how you handle adversity. That tells a lot about who you are and what you're about deep down inside. Sure, we've had challenges. There's no doubt about that. But we have to find a way to utilize these moments, the time to grow and develop and as a man and as an individual. We don't know where we are. These are interesting times now that we're dealing with the pandemic and the social unrest that we are having. It sounds like a double whammy, and that's a whole other conversation dealing with the social unrest that we're having. How are we going to handle that? Because, in my opinion, we got this unique opportunity to correct some things.
It's a great opportunity, Coach. It's an unbelievable opportunity, and I think that people are seizing that opportunity. I certainly hope we're bearing witness to real growth in this country.
Well, my biggest concern is that we have a lot of symbolic gestures, a lot of conversation, a lot of statements, a lot of protests, a lot of unrest. But at the end of the day, what are we really going to do? And if our politicians are not on board, people who make those decisions, people who, when everybody else go home and the rides are off and the T-shirts are gone and the songs have been sung and the cliches and chants have gone soft, what are we going to do to see whether or not we can come together as a country and can we just all get along? When are we going to make a decision that we are here together? We got to find a way to make the best out of each other as opposed to being envious and jealous and infighting with each other. It really is so tremendously disappointing because we're not born with these mindsets. They're developed along the way. The hatred, the disrespect. It's uncalled for when you wake up the next morning, we still here with each other. And until we make a concerted effort to understand and know each other, then we're going to continue to keep having this divisive attitude that's really at some point in time, if we don't correct this, it's going to create some issues that we may not can come back from. I see the positive things that are going on, but I also see things that you really, we don't talk about. We have to have open and honest discussion about this. We can't be afraid to have these tough conversations. So we can figure out first where we are, then we can figure out where we want to go, then we got to sit down and figure out how can we get there. But right now, it seems like we take one step forward, two steps back. And right now, I'm really concerned with not only the racial climate, the political climate, but also from a health standpoint, we got a lot of issues. But when we all come together as a group of people that respect one another, there's no doubt in my mind that we can correct all these things and have a better life for everybody.
Yeah, dialogue like the one we're having right now is critical to that. To sit across from somebody and to speak honestly and openly in the effort, the joint effort, to find a commonality, a common goal, because we're all human beings. You've alluded to it numerous times. At the end of the day, we have to find a way to make this work. I hope we're watching one of these moments that in time that when, Coach, I'm your age, when I get to be your age, I look back at that moment and say, that I was a part and I witnessed and I participated in real growth, in this country's growth. Let's hope that is the case. You mentioned also the health concerns. What have you been able to talk with your team about what expectations are for them and how they handle this in terms of staying in shape, doing the right things, whether that's distancing, eating properly, getting enough rest, taking care of their bodies, you name it?
We have conversations all the time. We got a long ways to go. It's just like the other things. We got to keep young people are growing and maturing, developing their philosophies about how they want to conduct themselves. Our guys have been real good at following our direction. We normally have a pretty good family atmosphere, and I think that we represent the fact that we can make progress, share the ball, share playing time, cheer for one another. I wish our society would adhere to that same philosophy. And it's interesting to me as we're talking sport that it's interesting that when you're sitting in the stand watching a football team, everybody's cheering for the team. We're not cheering for individuals because of personalities, because of race, or what have you. It's because that's who we're rooting for. It would be wonderful if our society could adhere to that. When we come into that arena and everybody's cheering for their team. And that represents the ability for us as a race, people, and as a society to be able to find commonality when we work together and make sacrifices for one another and create that brotherhood that's going to make us stronger as a nation. And we can do it in sports. We ought to be able to do it in politics. We ought to be able to do it in every other walk of life. And then educational wise, we got to find a way at an earlier age in our educational system where we can start helping educate our young people to respect people who don't necessarily look like them. Dealing with, in high school, I never really knew a whole lot about Native Americans, and that's something that I feel guilty about. And then even as an African American, I've never really understood what really went on with slavery and the method of going to Africa and putting people in chains and bringing them to states and making them slaves and going through that whole journey that a whole race of people had to overcome and come back from. And then you see there are times in society where the Civil War, what did that really, really mean? And then when you go back and peel the onion back and you really, really look at it, you realize what we really, really were fighting for is for everybody to be free. And then the moment that we went through that, I knew about slavery, but I really didn't totally understand it. And I'm saying that I would like for us, that's part of our history. That's part of what we need to know and learn about each other. And even the people who came from Europe. And I think more, if we understand more about who we are and what we are and how we got to this point, may we be more tolerable of each other. May we would have a better bond and a better understanding. But I always said that if we can put somebody on the moon, sure to God, we can figure out how to get along, and how to work together, for the betterment of all of us. Hopefully, during this moment in time, that we're all to come together, and hopefully from a political standpoint, right down to the educational standpoint, and to the personal standpoint, that we will learn about each other, and hopefully we'll come out of this whole moment a much better race of people.
We owe it to those that came before that did give so much. Coach, you lived through that. You bore witness to that. You have said on numerous occasions that you felt like you would never allow yourself to get discouraged because you wanted to honor those people that sacrificed, many of whom sacrificed with their lives. I know you're concerned, but you don't sound discouraged. Are you discouraged? Am I wrong about that? Or do you see, despite some of the setbacks and some of the moments, some days are tougher than others, but do you see progress happening here? Do you feel like that is something? You were part of the first really big movement where things changed, and there you were, a black man in the South during segregation, separating, living separate lives. You went through all of that, and you saw those sacrifices. This feels like a moment, another major moment in this country's growth, or potentially for this country's growth. Are you discouraged or not?
I'm concerned. I don't allow myself to be discouraged. I believe that for every problem there's a solution. We just have to find ways to work it out. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm trying to encourage people. We need all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. We all need 10 toes in the ring. We need to find ways. This is so important, a lot more than you would think. There's a commercial that I see on TV where it appears to be like there may be two kids, a little black kid and a white kid, and they're running toward each other, mm-hmm. and they're so happy to see each other. Yeah, they're running so fast, and they just run with their arms open, and they grab and they hug each other. It almost brings tears to my eyes to realize that here are some youngsters that are children that love each other because that's who they are. And then how do we get to the point, though, as we get older, that we end up forming these ideas that hold each other back and create such division within our society. But I do believe we've made so much progress. There's no doubt about it. And I'm still hanging to hope. That's why, I try to be positive. I try to be encouraging. I try to, in my own little world, in my lane, I just try to do the very best I can to contribute to society in a very positive way. We try to be great leaders of our youngsters so that they understand how this works, where they're not bitter or getting sideways with people because maybe things don't always go the way they like them and vice versa. I mean, this is part of who we are as part of growing up. We just hope that our young men come to us as teenagers, they leave as young adults more matured and ready and prepared to deal with the challenges we have in our life from a realistic standpoint.
And in the end, love will win out, and let's hope that there's more right-minded people than not. I think there are, and I hold on to that hope. And certainly I've enjoyed and continue to enjoy covering you, talking with you, Coach, watching your teams play, and the success that you brought to Florida State. This is so much bigger than that. I understand that. But as we wrap up, I do want to say that, and let's hope we get to see this team that is littered with all-world players yet again and continue to climb and have success. But as always, I'll say this, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming on. And maybe next time we'll talk some of this and also talk some music, because I know we can do that too, Coach.
Well, but listen, I want to thank you guys for having us on, but I also want to thank the great fans, the Florida State Seminole family, the Tallahassee community, for all the support that they've given our team throughout the years. I mean, we haven't always been at this level. We've had a great surge. We started off a little slow, then we got great momentum. We had another step back, but I think now we're here to stay. And a lot of it's because of the fans and the support that they've given us. We've created an atmosphere in Tallahassee now that's growing. Is something we all can be proud of. The fact that we've only lost, 3 games here since 1915. I mean, sorry, 1915, 2015. You know, I think that says a lot about the contribution that the fans have contributed and the atmosphere that they've allowed us to play with here. I want them to take some pride in the atmosphere that we've created, and understand that we are so appreciative, and they're the reason why we're able to have the level of success that we have. And I guarantee you, it's becoming an intimidating factor when teams start thinking about preparing to come play Tallahassee. They got to take notice that we've only lost 3 games at home in 5 years. Now that sends a message to them that when you come in here, you gotta bring your A game. And also, I see it's evident in the teams the way they play. They play so hard in the first half, in the first part of the game. You can just tell they're ready. But because of the quality of our depth and the energy that we've received from our fans, it's building and building. And sometimes toward the second half, the fans get more involved. The quality of our depth starts taking over, and you can just see in their face saying, they told us it was going to be tough, but they didn't say it was going to be this tough. and I want to thank our fans so very much for the atmosphere that we've been able to create in the tough. You become the talk of the country, and people are fearing the tough.
Well, there's no doubt, and the record speaks for itself. The atmosphere is something, Coach, I longed for and talked about years ago when I first started in the radio. I remember I was the first person to interview you when you got hired at Florida State, and I remember thinking, hoping that what we would see in due time was something like what we see now, which is simply amazing.
Are you saying that you interviewed me when I had hair?
I interviewed you when you had hair. I interviewed you at a time, and you told me, by the way, our first ever interview, long time ago now, you said that you had tremendous respect for the media because you had done your part in the media and you had played a role. And I said, I'm going to like this guy. And we've hit it off ever since, and it's been fun to watch, and we'll keep doing it, and we'll continue to grow. And I think, Coach, honestly, with what you just described, one of the reasons for that, and this is, I'm being very honest, is that the style of play, when you watch this team, they are so unselfish, and you ask your guys to be that kind of unselfish. Fans see that. I mean, people are drawn to that. There's no doubt. And plus the level of, obviously, skill and athleticism we watch this team play. You got NBA players out there, Coach. It's unbelievable. But they're unselfish kids, and they play hard every night. It's impossible not to root for that. So you commend the fans, but I think they certainly, their presence there and trying to be loud and influence the result of the game as best they can, that's born out of the way that you've taught this team to play. So I appreciate you too, Coach, and I appreciate your time today. Be well. Stay safe. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. That's Leonard Hamilton, head basketball coach at Florida State University. And, man, I've been talking to him for a long, long time. And it's a pleasure to always kind of exchange, not just thoughts, ideas, but he opens up. He's candid. He's genuine. You're going to get the real deal. I think it's one of the reasons, certainly, as I just noted, that his teams resonate in this community. They certainly are resonating with recruits these days. Another 5-star comes to Tallahassee. I couldn't speak of it specifically, but this is now an annual occurrence. As I said at the outset of the interview, 6 of the last 7 years they've brought in a 5-star recruit. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Insurgency began and you missed it.
He's a gem, man, and we're lucky to have him. Moreover, if you just care about the X's and O's and the W's and the L's, well, he's provided a whole hell of a lot of those too. It's an added bonus, obviously, that he's just a man of high character and that it's a program that we can all be proud of, not only because of the wins on the basketball floor itself and the home court advantage that's been created, but also the character of how they go about their business. I enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. If you tuned in late, let's say you just hopped on now on your way home at the end of a long day and you missed the interview with Leonard Hamilton, all 25 minutes or so of it, go back and get caught up. We're going to post this as soon as the show ends today on iTunes, or Apple iPodcast. Yeah, what am I?
Apple Music, Apple
Podcast. It's all, you can find it.
Apple Banana.
It goes up on Spotify too at some point. It's a little weird on Spotify, but it's there. It's on our website, ESPNTallahassee.com. I will shamelessly promote that because I thought it was good stuff and I enjoyed talking with him. And now I get to celebrate and get excited about something we've talked about all day. I woke up this morning like a little kid, man. You guys some of you probably saw it. I tweeted out, I had baseball in the mind. I woke up. I was having my morning coffee, sipping out of my Pirates mug, walking around the neighborhood, noting that it was already humid and hot at 7:45 a.m. as I strolled through the various neighborhoods.
Whoa, that's the most humidity in the morning I've felt in some time.
It didn't make me happy. I was a little frustrated by it. But I'll tell you this much, man. The fact that I was able to kind of get out there and wrap my mind around the return to baseball and get excited about that. I know we carry, of course, the Braves tomorrow, and we'll have an hour for you tomorrow. We'd like to thank our friends at Bearno Heating and Air Conditioning for sponsoring this week with baseball coming up. It's good times, man. We're all really, 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 I think, in need of something like this. Listen, you could be a lukewarm baseball fan, but boy, if you've been missing live sports.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, on my way home tonight, I will be stopping for the baseball in a box. I don't know what I'm going to do, though. Is it going to be the Bradley's dog or the two hot dogs?
Well, I'm jealous. I haven't had hot dogs or Bradley's or anything like that in a long time, years, in fact, and it's not because they're not delicious. They are. But today is the day every year where that comes back to haunt me. Most of the time I can get by with it, but today, I'm envious. And, our friends at Corner Pocket doing the right thing with that. You swing on by there. What's that deal again, by the way? Tell everybody.
All right, so you can choose a hamburger, two hot dogs, or a Bradley's dog. You get a side of fries, curly or straight, your call.
Nice.
A little individual bag of Cracker Jacks.
Nice.
Right? And then you get a giant beer, 24 ounces. And the cool thing about the current time we live in.
You're allowed to take that with you.
You can take it with you. Yeah. You can take it all with you, including the beer.
Take it all.
Keep the lid on till you get home. Keep the lid on. Don't be a fool. But then once you get home, crack it open. Enjoy the baseball.
Yeah. It'd go to waste if you didn't crack it open.
Oh.
Yeah, no. So how great is that? Sit down and watch baseball with your beer and a dog. Or a burger and a dog, whatever. Or a burger and a beer, I should say.
Well, the dogs they have, too, are good. Didn't you indulge in a recent year for our opening days at CP?
That might have been 3 or 4 years ago. I think I did.
They're still doing $2 hot dogs if you just want that. And then it's $5 if you want a giant beer and a hot dog. That's the special for opening night and opening day.
It's just goodness. You know what else is goodness? What I'm about to do. Oh, it's been a while. But it's not for nothing either. I mean, you really do get quality matchups. If you would, Tom, please, fire it up.
It's time for, how you say, with the pitching, probables?
It'll choke you up. How glorious is that? Just to hear it. Those banging Pistons from back in the day.
Good friend of Rich Lerner, Golf Channel.
Yeah. I remember when I had the idea and I loved it, and then he executed it perfectly. That went well. All right, here you go. We got Yankees, Nats, 7:08 p.m. ESPN. Nationals home opener. The defending World Series champions will throw. Max Scherzer on the mound for the Yankees. Flush with a 9-year, $324 million contract. Garrett Cole toes the rubber for Pinstripers. And it's, an ERA that led the majors with 326 strikeouts to boot. We need to double check again. You should, anyhow, just for a reminder, how freaking good Garrett Cole was last year. That is dumb. So it is that Garrett Cole will pitch for the Yankees tonight, and Max Scherzer will go for the Nats.
It was 212 innings that he pitched last year, 326 Ks against 48 walks. My goodness.
2.50 ERA.
Yes, and his ERA plus is 185. The whip was, this is the one. Here it is. I was looking for the number there.
Yeah.
Whip of 0.895 for the season. For the season.
Ain't going to walk you, man.
He made 33 starts with a whip of under 0.9.
When you throw as hard as he does, there's no reason to walk anybody. If it gets to be 3-1, 3-0, rear back, man. Let's go. 3 straight, 99 down the pike. I dare you. See if you can get it. Not going to walk people. Tonight, 10:08 p.m., Giants-Dodgers, old rivalry, that too on ESPN. Dodgers Stadium. Clayton Kershaw takes to the hill. For the 9th time in the past 10 years, Kershaw gets the ball on opening day. He's built up the same as a regular season, and in the original spring training displayed a little more velocity after an offseason in which he was driven by analytics to throw the ball a little bit harder.
Oh.
Analytics, Tom.
Might help the cause, throw the ball a little harder.
A little harder.
If only Chris Young had analytics.
Johnny Cueto is going to go for the Giants. He has started 4 consecutive openers for the Reds from 2012 to 2015, but hasn't been an open day starter since. Really probably an indicator that the Giants are going to have a very long year when they roll out Johnny Cueto as their ace, although he has been good and was really good last year.
This is one of the times where I'm glad that fans are not in the stands, because Dodgers fans will kill you, especially if you're a Giants fan. I feel like there's one fatality a year after the game is over when these two teams play. So good. No fans. Good. Stay away.
And that is Probables. It is back, my friends, because baseball is back. Live sports are back on your television when you get home, above and beyond just silly things like skipping stones and watching people throw freaking bags. No, you've got golf and now baseball. And soon, the NBA and the NHL. It's a beautiful thing. I had to let him go. It's too good. Good work out of you. Thank you, Matthew, as well. To all of you who called and or listened, I surely do appreciate it. I'm excited about it. We do have baseball for you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, just a few minutes. It's going to be pregame coverage, ESPN Radio, of the season opener, Yankees and Nationals.
My thanks to Barano Heating and Air Conditioning for jumping in and sponsoring the return of Major League Baseball. We really do appreciate you. Same goes for Corner Pocket, and the same goes for our friends at Phone Hero for sponsoring that interview that we did with Leonard Hamilton this hour. Be well, everybody. Enjoy the baseball. We'll be back with you for an hour tomorrow. We do have the Braves tomorrow.
2 o'clock, special start time. 2 o'clock, 2:55, we give way to the Braves Radio Network.
Oh, good times, good times. Soak it in, folks. He's a gem, man, and we're lucky to have him. Moreover, if you just care about the X's and O's and the W's and the L's, well, he's provided a whole hell of a lot of those too. It's an added bonus, obviously, that he's just a man of high character and that it's a program that we can all be proud of, not only because of the wins on the basketball floor itself and the home court advantage that's been created, but also the character of how they go about their business. I enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. If you tuned in late, let's say you just hopped on now on your way home at the end of a long day and you missed the interview with Leonard Hamilton, all 25 minutes or so of it, go